and welcome to Thoughts in the Green Room, the interview series with your host, Geoff Mays, and with me today is Jada Rifkin.
Hi.
Now, for those of you who don't know Jada, she is an actor, singer, dancer who's performed in Singapore and the Middle East. Is that correct?
It is totally true.
And the last that you were seen on stage not too long ago, It's a Wonderful Life, a live radio play at Lower Ossington Theatre.
I did that.
And currently, you are working with the Juno Award winner David Gershon from David and Judy, correct?
Judy and David.
From Judy and David.
She'll be so mad.
Sorry, David and Judy and David. My apologies. And you're working on a Theatre for Young Audiences touring show through Education Arts Canada, written by Judy and David.
That's right.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Lots going on for you. A lot has gone on in the past. And you're here today to sit down with us, our internet audience, to chat a little bit about where you are and how the career runs.
Woo! So excited. Let's do it.
Excellent. So, the first thing, I'm going to go completely off of what we talked about already, because the first thing that strikes me when I threw this over here, and as I said, I'm like, a live radio play.
Yeah.
What is a live radio play like?
Okay.
And for those who don't know what a live radio play is, maybe you can tell a little bit about it, touch on that, and then share the differences between doing live theater and film or TV to a live radio play.
Ooh, yes. So many parts of this question that are so interesting. Okay, so basically, this live radio play was live. It was a full theater experience, but it was set in the late 1940s. So the audience was actually as if the audience was transformed watching a live radio play set in Christmas Eve, and we were retelling the story of It's a Wonderful Life. But instead of each person playing each role, one person could play up to 15 different roles, voicing each character. So, for example, we'd have George Bailey and Mary Hatch playing old from throughout the years from young to old, and then I was Violet Bick and I was George's and Mary's mother's, and it was really fun for the audience and for us doing this show, transforming. There was no costume changes, no hairstyle changes. It was literally us in our beautiful costumes by Aaron Gorofsky, and with this set was incredible. Michael Gloro killed it. And we would really go from our seats as if we were at this radio play, but it was live, just like any other theater experience.
So would it, in terms of it being a live radio play, would it be like being a studio audience?
That's exactly
if you were
it.
in the theater at the time?
Absolutely. We had an applause sign up there for everyone to laugh or applaud,
right?
Which we hope they did, and they did, thankfully. So one thing we were like, do that, and they're like, yes, we will. We'll play along.
And how long did the show run for?
Yeah, so because it was a Christmas show, it started end of November and then ran until New Year's Eve, around there, December 30th. The most special part of it, though, was because the show is based in Christmas Eve. We did a Monday night show this year because it was Christmas Eve. Yes. So it was amazing, the turnout, that people actually did show up. Now, this show in particular at the Lower Ossington Theatre has been playing for the past 4 years, and this is the first time I was a part of it, but the person that played George Bailey has done it multiple times, so he has done that Christmas Eve show, and it is quite special.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And I've got one other question about it. You said, so we've capped it down into the idea that it was sort of like, if I was an audience member there for it, and sadly I missed it, and I do say sadly.
It's fine.
Yeah, I know it's fine, but it's not fine. So if I were there, it would be like going to a live radio studio taping, right? Would be a decent analogy. For you as a performer, how is that different from doing a quote-unquote straight theater production?
Yeah, so absolutely. So not only was I playing all these characters, I was playing the actor playing all these characters. So it wasn't just one thorough line of a story. It was, well, how does the actor voicing all of these characters feel? So it was like almost two stories in that show. That was kind of how it felt. Also, there were some beautiful music segments in it, so it wasn't just a straight play. But besides that, it could have been any other live radio play that you would see, except it was very special because it is that has that aspect of nostalgia in it.
Right. Yeah. The classic It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
And compared to live theater, I'm hearing it was fairly similar. What would it be like comparing that to doing something on set?
Well, as opposed to it being live, I suppose that you probably would be able to have multiple takes. You probably would be able to have the multiple cameras being part of that studio experience, or depending on what budget it is. I mean, what is the difference between theater and film? There's no difference between live radio play and doing theater, but there is a huge difference between doing live theater and film. I mean, it's a great question. I don't really understand.
It's a fun question, right?
It's a fun question.
Because acting is acting, right?
Yeah, I mean, you get when you're doing the show, like, that's your one time to do that show, depending on how many times. I mean, we did it 6 shows a week, which was amazing. But on set, like, you really only get like a couple tries to do, and then bing, bang, boom, you're done.
Right. One off, right?
Yeah.
But then it lives on, immortalized in celluloid. And, coming back to that idea of acting is acting, I know for myself, I prefer being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I love theater. I'll never turn away from theater. I've said that many times to my green room audience. But there's an enjoyment that I get that's different on film. I know what I have to do that's different for the two medias. Right, because although it's the same craft, it's a different approach. It's like you don't drive a race car the same way you drive a Toyota, right?
Yeah, I know everything about cars. I don't drive.
So maybe the analogy doesn't work for you, but it
I
probably
understand.
does out there. Somebody got that.
No, of course. I do understand what you're saying, though.
So what is the difference for you between those two? Not the cars. We're not talking about the
No,
cars
we're talking
anymore.
about acting for theater and acting for film.
Yes.
Well, yes. I would say, well, okay, so I actually like to find like the common thing between, like, what can I find that's similar to acting on film and acting on theater? And it's like really just being honest and really just telling the story. So people could tell you, oh, in film you just have to be less, just live in the moment and, like, don't move at all. But I don't do that. And it has nothing. I still do fine. You know what I mean? Like, there's the booking of film, and it has nothing to do with how I am acting. It's because, well, I find the common denominator. It's like, oh, it's telling a story and it's being honest.
Right. Now that I agree with very much, finding that common denominator. It doesn't matter. Acting is acting. You're telling a story. You're finding the truth in the storytelling, truth in your character.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because many people, that's a huge, what's the word, beef amongst fellow colleagues and whatnot. Oh, film acting is so much different than stage acting, but you and I seem to hold the same thing.
Yeah.
Outside of, the only difference I really make is toning it down a little bit because I'm not playing to, 600-700 people.
Yeah.
I'm playing to a camera.
But I would also say that there is, like, difference, at least for me, in theater alone, and I only am bringing up theater because I've been doing it quite a bit recently. Is that there's differences between every single genre of theater that I do. Like, a lot of theater I do, as you could tell, because I'm like, is like a lot of theater for younger audiences. And so for that, even though you still have to keep it real, there are some directors, there's some companies that you work for, you're like, actually, judging by this script, I feel like you're doing the show at 8 in the morning. You gotta be up and ready, or else nobody will join you and up and dance. Whereas if you're doing it at 8 p.m., 8 show a week, 6 show a week, or even 3 show weekend for the indie projects of, like, the really straight theater, like John Patrick Shanley, you're still intense. You're still doing. You're just live there. The intentions are different, and how you attack the piece is incredibly different. So it's not even just as simple as theater and film. It's like literally every genre of theater that I do, I attack differently.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That comes back to telling the story truthfully.
Yeah.
Right? Finding the honesty in each character agreeably. Now you said something in there to me that's interesting, that brings us back around to where I said we were going to start when we haven't even got there yet. You said you've been doing a lot of theater lately.
Yeah, it's been cool. It's been cool. Thanks.
And I met you some time back when you were first coming out of school, moving into theater.
I was.
As a primary.
Yeah.
Right? So what was that like for you? Because we've got some history, you've got some growth in your career at this point. Yeah. But I think that you're still young enough in your career that looking back on it may be a little bit easier than some of my other colleagues who have got so much longevity. Like, what? I don't remember that.
Oh,
I don't
true.
Remember that.
It's true. So, I mean, it has been, I guess, 8 years now since that moment when we met. I was auditioning for one of my first shows, almost out of theater school, I would say, and it was a scary time. But what I would say is that finding that common thing, I really try to like have that same drive, because when you exit theater school, you have like that drive to like do everything, audition for everything, and there's no holding back, because you've only seen your competition in your classes. You've only seen, oh, I look just like these 5 other people, not I look just like these 100,000 people, but because you still have that confidence, that still that drive, and it's really important. And the reason why I truly feel like I'm still in this industry, whether I've booked a show or whether I'm still just like pounding that pavement, it's having that same drive of like, I'm going to audition for that. No, I'm going to do that no matter what. I'm going to get up at 8 a.m, just like I did back then. Yeah, I would say that.
So what I'm hearing from you is that I'm hearing a couple things. One, longevity in the business as it is right now is because you still maintain that drive. That drive hasn't been pushed out of you by the industry or by any other means. Yeah. And that's something that I can speak to around my colleagues with some longevity, that many of them aren't in there because that drive is gone. Various reasons, whether it be choices for families or different careers or whatnot. Yeah. But one of those things is the industry beating you down. Right? We deal with a lot of rejection as one of those key factors, right?
Not me.
Yeah, no, not definitely not. You've never experienced that whatsoever. Never heard one no.
Never.
So fortunate, you.
So many no's.
But coming back to that other aspect, you said you and I met at that audition, right?
Yeah.
You were just about out of theater school, and you said it was a scary time.
It was.
What made it a scary time for you?
Because and I have to say that I had incredible training at the training I went to in Toronto, but I also had this feeling that I had to work harder than others. I had that feeling because I wasn't just given leads, and it wasn't that I was given, it just, I felt that I had to work harder. And coming into the real world where I was like, I feel like I'm prepared, but you don't really know if you're prepared. And then you look around and people kind of look like they know what they're doing, so you have to like kind of work on the fly, because you can learn all you need to know in theater school but not truly know what the heck you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm allowed to say heck, right?
Yeah, you can say
okay,
that.
Good.
Yeah, I don't think YouTube will censor us out for that word, but there's other words.
I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah.
No, but that's actually kind of where I saw you. And is it okay that I share this story?
Yeah.
This is okay. So guys, this is where I met Geoff. Like we were at this audition for a company, this theater company, and I was scared. I was still in school, and I see this guy, and Geoff, he has this confidence, and you can see how grounded he is, and that is something that I know I still work on, and it's something that you want to kind of be a part of. And something inside me was like, Jada, you need to meet this human being right now. And now in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have distracted him from his concentration, but so don't do that. But clearly it worked out because you were my first, you were my mentor. We became friends from that moment, and then we even got the call back together. No, that night, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Geoff went into that audition, and then I was waiting, and then you opened the door, and you're like, hey, Jada, do you want to come in to do a scene with me? I'm like, what? I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even realize that you can do readings, cold reads with people at this audition. I didn't know that was a thing I knew cold reads existed at that time. I just didn't realize. I was like, oh, this is happening right now. And that's how we actually, like, not the first day we met.
We got to work together.
Yeah.
We didn't get the... I didn't get the show. You did get the show.
Well, yes.
Yeah. And that's fine, right? Because you don't get them all, and I've learned that in time. And I appreciate that comment. Thank you. The mentor fact. You and I have had some history together. We've had lots of chats, lots of discussion over acting and where it's going. And it's interesting to me, right? You're saying you're sharing with everybody out there the fear that you were experiencing, the being drawn towards speaking with me because of a recognition of a grounding.
Yeah.
Right? So that grounding helped to I would imagine only minimize some of those fears and trepidations that were going on.
I was very much that. And especially as a person that was, you're told certain things in theater school. I don't know why I keep talking about theater school. I think I haven't really talked about it for a very long time. But I know that from a personal experience, like I was always told, I'm like, you need to ground yourself. You need to stop doing so much. You need to listen. And it was incredibly helpful to watch other people in the real world doing just that. And I think that's where I started learning it, was from you.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you said, I'm gonna hold my next question for a few moments. I'm gonna bring us back around. You said you don't know why you're talking so much about theater school. Maybe because you haven't talked about it in a while. So, yeah. And you brought up several times the fact that, theater school teaches only so much. In theory, you're prepared to go out into the real world when you get your certificate, your graduation diploma, whatever they're called these days. I
got a diploma. From Randolph. I went to Randolph Academy before it became like it was already a college. It was a private college, and now it's Randolph College for the Performing Arts.
Wonderful.
For musical theater.
Musical theater. Look at that. So I'm curious, and hopefully they are too. What is that difference for you? You're in class, you're auditioning, practicing auditioning, you're in class or you're with your group of peers doing a show that you've been cast in for the school production. Right? That's its own world, I would imagine.
Yes, it is.
And what's the difference from that world to the quote-unquote real world when you're auditioning for shows that will hopefully pay your rent?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is the emotional attachment that the panel has towards their students. I think that, we were very lucky because we had the people who were the director, choreographer, were not emotionally attached to us when we did the auditions. However, for the majority of the time at theater school, because they're teaching you, they're seeing you grow, they already have these thoughts in their mind of who you are, not just based on a headshot and resume, but they've actually gotten to know you. And you're only 18. For the majority of people at theater school are just 18 years old. They just graduated high school. They don't even know who they are. And that is the teachers, the professors' thoughts of them. Whereas in the real world, they don't have that, oh, they're just growing up or we're just getting to know them. It's like, let's see what you got. What do you have on your resume? What, like, you know what I mean? It's based on skill and how you present yourself just as a first impression.
So how does that affect your performance, knowing that distinction, knowing that when you walk into audition at theater school, you have potentially a better shot maybe at getting a part because a teacher knows you actually fit this role, knows more depth of you, right?
I would say that it worked for a lot of people. I know for a person, it didn't work for me. I think that because I'm very I was very like this all the time, and I wanted to please everyone, and I think that people really paid more attention to that than to any roles I could play.
Okay, which is fair.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, so what's the difference for you as a performer going into an audition for a theater school with your peers, knowing that, it's the school production, it's not some professional gig, it's part of your program, you may or may not get cast in agreeably, versus going out into the real world and you're now past school,
right? You're
auditioning. What's the difference between those two worlds for you, or is there any at all?
So it doesn't necessarily have to be different. It's just, it's a smaller group of people, but what the opportunity we have was people who are casting are working in the professional world. So that's like the preempt, and then when we actually go into the real world, it's you have to do your own research. You have to figure out all the shows. The people aren't just gonna give you that information. It's really like you've been given this toolbox, and you have to take it into yourself. to make the choice to go to that audition. You weren't being forced. You have to go to that audition. You have to go to learn all those songs. We had more prep in theater school. So getting sides, even for film or theater, like you get sides the night before.
In the real world.
In the real world. You get that sheet music a day before. You're like, oh, I have to learn 2 or 3 songs, 16 bar cuts, maybe 32 bar cuts for tomorrow. Recently they had an open call and then appointments for Geoff and Jada, where I was in Tech Week for a show, and my agent sends me a voicemail being like, you have an audition tomorrow. And I'm like, I'm in Tech Week, okay. And I remember like having in our like little break, I'm like, oh gosh, let me like learn it. But that's what you do, like it's just part of it.
Real world that you're speaking about versus
theater school, where you just have more prep time, people know you more, so they already have that impression of you.
Right.
So
would you say that makes it a more comfortable experience in terms of a learning environment? Does that have a value to it? Or do you feel, I'll leave the question right there. Do you feel that environment allows for comfort to allow for greater learning and ease it learning the craft, practicing the craft?
So I think there's definitely more comfort. I would say that because and we're talking about theater school here, I think that when, your teachers are kind of like helping you out, and it's very comforting. It helps to a point. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily going to be what you go through every day. And I think that nowadays theater schools are kind of learning that, or going with the times and not just stuck what they were learning 20 years ago, which is incredible. But I think that what they do is relevant, but just like anything, like even no matter what school you go to, you won't know until you're living in the real world doing it.
Right. So you've got to take the experiences learned and apply them. And obviously you have applied them very well. This is some years down the line since theater school, from that first show
yes.
that we met at, that you booked. And I'm curious, what's the difference for you today walking into an audition than it was, when you first walked out of school? So I honestly, the only difference is being more grounded as a performer and being a little more confident. I still get just as nervous for those big equity like the union auditions. I still get just as nervous because it's either the first time I'm auditioning for them, this company, this prestigious company, or it's been a couple years, or maybe I had to learn the hard way that was not how to audition, when I just got out of theater school, when I just wasn't ready. So there is no difference because I still want it so badly, but I'm aware of it more. So I kind of have to catch myself, and I know how to catch myself a little bit better. Okay. Yeah. Catching yourself a little bit better. I like the way you phrase that. And you also said at the beginning of that you're more grounded now. Yeah. Now, in terms of catching yourself and grounding yourself, are they related? Is the catching yourself reminding yourself to ground? Is that what I'm hearing? Yes. And it's in terms of the minute you walk in to the holding room, where the monitor is signing your name in, and also when you go into the audition room, when people are asking you questions and you have to know, maybe I won't talk about that, or maybe I won't actually say that, because Jada, and I really do my best to be like Jada all the time, like this is me. Gotta be yourself. Gotta be in this industry. Gotta be yourself. And sometimes Jada in the fringe tent is not the same Jada in the audition room, understandably and respectfully, because of the language I use, and I think that's the difference. Right. So is there anything in terms of grounding? I'm thinking back to my theater school right now. Yeah. Right, I'm thinking back to teachers talking about breathing techniques and standing in a certain spot and all those kinds of things. Is there anything that you now do, experience behind you, that when you're catching yourself and recognizing you're on a high point, is there anything you actively do to ground, to bring you back down and prep for that moment? Yeah, great question. I take a literal step back
and I breathe in and I breathe out. I wish that I could say that I have taken those exercises and I apply them everywhere, but I don't, because I find what works for me and I use it. If it doesn't work for me, I'm not going to waste my time.
Right. Absolutely. And that brings me around, I think, a great spot for you and I to wrap up. And I'm curious about your thoughts. I know that we've talked about this before. And I believe I've said this before, that whether you are a fan of Stanislavski or Uta Hagen or fill in the blanks for all the great names, right? Whoever it is who is your creme de la creme of famous teachers.
Right.
You said you'd love to say moments ago that you'd love to say you take all those exercises and use them, but there's no point in using what you don't.
I wouldn't say that I know I just said, like, there's no point, but because there is a point for other people to take it and go, that actually works for me.
And that's exactly where I was going, right? See, so I'm hearing from you that you and I are on the same page, the agreement of no matter what's laid out in front of you, you need to pick and choose what translates to your skill sets and what helps you accomplish your goals.
And I think that we were also talking about, like, grounding and what exercises we take when we ground ourselves. I think that when we're in the actual rehearsal space and a director asks you, well, why do you think your character would do that? That's a different part. That's like a completely different exercise, which I totally am down to use. I use it all the time, actually. So there you go.
I've got various techniques for myself that I use to ground when I walk into auditions to make sure that I'm not freaking out when I walk through the doors.
Yes.
And definitely things that come in from theater school and all my years of study. And I want to bring it around to one more thing.
Yeah.
Your next big show. The next thing that's on your plate is this TY show.
But what's so special about it is that I'm not just learning one role. I'm the swing in the show, which requires me to learn all 4 roles in the show. And because it's children's theater, each role plays multiple roles. So it's been really fun to watch the show, but also to go home and just rehearse the entire show of Beanstalk, the 70s take of Jack and the Beanstalk as a one-woman show in my bedroom, because it's super fun.
And this show is touring where?
It's touring beautiful theaters in Ontario as well as Montreal. You can find it at educationarts.ca.
All right, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, you can take a look at educationarts.ca. I'll post that link at the end of the clip here with the credits. You can take a look, and if you're around for one of Jada's shows, then maybe you can go and catch her live. You'll have to look into that for yourself. And with that said, Jada, I want to thank you for joining us, our live audience somewhere out there. And ladies and gentlemen, those are your thoughts from the Green Room, the interview series with your host, me, Geoff Mays, and of course the fabulously talented Jada Rifkin. Stop. No, I never will, because it's true. It's true. All these years in the business and still going strong. Ladies and gentlemen, look for this talented lady in a theater or on a movie screen near you soon. Take care. We'll talk to you in about a week or 2.